Alrighty, hello there. So, uh, I want to breach the silence with some word sound speak and some tangible action. And ramble and say some things and maybe share these things. Because, there's a lot within and throughout. And where to begin? Where to begin? So, I basically started to do this thing that is a thing, an action, a verb, an enactment, a primordial, simple, sacred action that when I'm doing it, a lot comes up through me. And I feel like I would like to share it somehow, but I don't know exactly how to share the things I really want to share because they're kind of like subtle and between the lines and simple and rudimentary and basic, but if you can tap into them, it's profound. And so what I'm doing here is these things, they're just kind of bizarre looking, right? Almost looks like a worm or something, I don't know. But this is a dried bean pod. We call these beans, man. Beans, which are like beans. Like you can go in the supermarket and there's so many beans. Like there's so many beans everywhere. So many beans. And how long have beans been a thing, man? How long have beans been? Because like if you just take one thing, right, and you open it up, and when you open it up and you see what's in there, like you see how it formed, like somehow, like I cannot convey this, man. Like you really have to plant the bean, watch the bean grow, watch the bean form. Any plant, really, any plant. See a plant manifest, like what it's doing. Like if you really contemplate it, what it is doing, oh my God, it's beyond, man, and it's right there in front of us. Every single blade of grass, every single plant is literally somehow by some action, somehow is doing more than I can describe. It's tapped into this hard earth, and it's tuned into the what is invisible. It's tuned into the air. It's tuned into the light, and somehow it's taken all these things and it's manifesting itself. It's literally just increasing. And it's mind-blowing. It's really mind-blowing if you are to like really think about it. Like it's so many things are just taken for granted and looked over. Not, oh yeah, plants grow. Yeah, plants grow all over the world. Plants grow, no kidding. But like when you really stop to sit and consider what growing even is, like it's profound. And like if we could only tap into the profundity of every little thing that's going on, we would be living in a different type of way, a different frequency, a different vibration. But like the bean plant is tender, and then it makes these things that are rather hard, little rock hard little beans. And these beans, man, have the potential to stay inert as a hard little bean for a tremendous amount of time. And then if they were just given the right conditions, like dropped on the ground and maybe pushed into the ground or just gotten wet and something, like, you know, like it can open up and it can turn into a whole plant. And then that one single bean has the potential to make innumerable beans. It's so profound what plants are doing, man, and then what we can achieve if we are able to synchronize and align with them and commune with the plant world, man. Because the whole thing can be gardened and like it can be very wonderful. But like we are caught up in a lot of different distractions and illusions, and like something about these beans to me is like, it feels very real. Like I don't have a huge harvest of them, but I have more than I started with in the beginning of the season. And when I'm feeling these, like they have a certain tangibility, a certain reality, a certain power that I feel that is absent if I'm counting money, counting money. Because you walk around town with like a handful of beans, you try to trade it or like, you like this is valuable, but people will laugh at you. But like, you can't go to a homeless person and give him these beans, but he'll take some change. But people walk around with these wads of cash and they've got the accounts and the banks and like all this money. The whole system is based on money. And like at the end of the day, what is the actual value of money compared to beans? Like these beans that are here today, dude, amazingly, these beans are extra special to me because they are of a special heritage. They are from the Hopi Nation, the Native Americans, the agricultural gurus, the very special Hopi people, but supposedly they were farming these and they passed down for so long, they managed to keep it going. And many, many years ago, I got one little seed pack of the Hopi beans, and I still have them many generations later still. And like I haven't become the expert at growing them yet, so I haven't had the most prolific crop, but I've managed to plant them, and I've gone through a lot of issues with my gardening situation, but this year in particular, I had so many, I planted them, they grew, and now I have more than I started with, which means I can plant more next year. And this year, I tuned in and noticed some things, like what grew better, what didn't. There were some things I've wanted to try for a really long time, just a simple thing of growing a bean up a tree. And so I've got this pawpaw tree that I planted many years ago, and it's now the biggest and best it's ever been. And it's growing, and I managed to train this bean, and these beans in particular, this bean plant grew up a pawpaw tree and was hanging out there, and it manifested itself. It materialized its essence into reality. And it's just like vibes, dude. Just a vibe, dude. Like, beans, bro. But this action here, this is something that like we all used to do all the time. And now like people go lifetimes without ever doing anything like this. You can just go to the supermarket and get a bag full of beans, like it's all been done for you. But like to do this, and it's a profound process. Like you get just to sit here and meditate and pray and have these realizations, and in within you, your ancestors, these codes, these things are encoded into you, and they're inherent. Everyone has these skills deep within them, and it's not much to it. Like, but back in the day, something to think about. It's like our ancestors were praying all the time. Prayer was like the most important aspect of life. And of the many prayers prayed, a lot of them were for the future generations, for those to come. They'd be sitting there, whether they're shucking beans or like passing a pipe or just, cooking dinner, like whatever they were doing. They could have been doing this right here. They could have been taking their harvest, processing it to, store it and prepare it and cook it and keep the cycle going. But they were praying for the future generations, for their well-being, their prosperity. And the thing about the ancestors and their prayers for the future generations to come is that we are here. We are those future generations. We are, in a way, the answer to their prayers. Especially if we are to be genuinely living in alignment and tuning into the great eternal spirit. But money is funny to me. And like right now, there's this huge thing with Bitcoin and NFTs, and I try to comprehend it, but I really don't. I really don't get it. And I really don't know why so many different people are really so into it. And I don't exactly want to knock it and just block it out and, run away from it. But I'm interested in questioning it. Especially when I'm playing with beans. Because, man, like, what is the value coming from for these Bitcoins? It just doesn't make sense to me, and maybe I just don't understand it. I don't understand all the ins and outs of it. But my basic understanding is that, like, somehow you have this fucked up modern currency system. You've got money, you've got fiat currency that's supposedly backed with a metal, which, why is that valuable in the first place is a main question to consider. Because, like, for instance, if I had a gold bar, and like a lot of people are also not only into Bitcoin, but they're into like save on precious metals. And I'm like, okay, so I invest and I get a bunch of precious metals, a bunch of gold bars, and a bunch of silver, and maybe copper. I get these blocks of metal or coins, and I stack them here next to the table, on the table, next to the beans. And I'm like, okay, well, this gold, the color is definitely nice. The silver, also nice color. I might lick it. Might feel like there might be something going on there. Maybe some kind of microdose of gold. But overall, I can't cut into that like it's butter and chomp it up. And even if I could, I don't know. Maybe the body can use gold in some way, but it might just pass right through. But then the beans, man, like the beans, I could take one of these beans and fucking just trip and fall and drop it outside, and it very well could come back and be 1,000-fold more beans. Or I can eat those beans. I can cook them and eat them. And then with eating, I can pray and meditate and live and do life, I can use those beans to nourish me, to use my senses to perceive the gold and silver and just go, gold and silver. What do with it? Oh, I can maybe pick it up and put it down. What's the gold worth, though? I can put it into computer chips and make computers, I guess. But I can't eat a computer. I can't eat the gold. I can eat the beans, though. I can eat the beans. And I can plant more beans. That gold and silver, if I figure out a way to use it, where am I going to get more? In the ground? Like, I got to dig for the gold. These beans are just coming out of the ground. They're just coming up out of the ground. And they probably have gold inside of them. If you were to analyze all these different plants, herbs, fucking beans, they got vitamins and minerals in there. They got copper. They got gold. They got all these little molecules in there. But instead of fashioning those molecules into jewelry, excessive things, excessive gadgets, you can consume that, and then your temple can be sustained and maintained and just upright, Because the beans are life, dude. And the metal has its value in certain ways, but I don't think it's really anything to base an entire civilization economy on. Like, okay, so the value of the money aside, your paper money and your credit card system, your numbers in a computer, is somehow related to metal sitting in a giant fucking garage, sitting in an army base, just chilling there. Okay? So you've got gold and metals being used to make tools and technology. And then you've got money that is the value of these things that you're trading are based on this closet full of stuff. And then you have the Bitcoin, the alternative currency, coming in here and saying, okay, you take the fake money that's based on that, which may or may not even be there, which may or may not have the value we've always assumed and believed, and then you take it and you funnel it into computers. And these computers are running on that gold and stuff. These computers are running, and now computers are profound. Technology is amazing. Should we be leaning on it like we do? No way, Jose. Should we be using it better? Yes way, Jose B. But look, the computers are running on magical forces. All these technologies are basically magic. Like, if you really stop to think, like, the plants are magic, the fucking computers are magic. It's magic. It's all magic, trust me. Scientifically, it's magic. But these computers are what? Cracking codes or something? They're like making codes and cracking codes and making codes and cracking codes and people and stuff, and like, so the money, which I'm mostly like really just all trying to figure out what the actual value of it is. Aside from like registering, okay, 1 equals 1, I believe in 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, that equals 100. I don't know, like, what is the real value? But now these computers are doing this and that, and then you have this fluctuation of values, I guess, the market, and I guess the way the thing is you can take this money that may be worthless, put it into the computers, and maybe somehow, through the fluctuation in the market, take it out at a time when it's worth more than what you put it in for. Worth more, the values. The codes got cracked, so it became more valuable. You take it back out, now it's more points of the system that has no inherent value either. So you're just like multiplying nothing. That's what the humans have done, is they've divided and chopped up and multiplied nothing and valued it in a certain kind of weird way. Because like I don't know, it's just something about the earth. It's weird. It all makes sense, but it doesn't make sense at all. When like you could eliminate all that and everyone could just plant beans and we'd all have an abundance of beans. And that's just like in a nutshell, you know, that's just in a bean pod. Like that right there is meant to be unpacked. That's a seed in itself to be unpacked and grown out. But like the reality is that most of our money points are being used to feed ourselves. And the great majority of what we are all collectively consuming is actually poison for us. And it's not supporting our life. And we're slaving. We are all slaving for these things. And a lot of these things that are available to us are inferior to what could actually be produced in one's own domain, own territory. Whether they live on land or they live in an apartment in the city. There is potential and opportunity in every direction, in every little spick and spot of human life, everywhere, to cultivate nourishing, valuable, tangible food and medicine. But instead, humans will mostly mow the lawn, rake leaves, do the jobs they don't want to do to get the money points they need, to buy the stuff that is supposed to be supporting them, but is mostly destroying them. All the while, we have this, what do you want to call it, this pandemic thingamajig, this virus thing, you know, the virus, attacking people and killing them and stuff like that. And then you have this huge, gigantic reaction where you have some kind of, it's crazy. I don't know. The whole thing's crazy. Like, it's going on right now. And I think a lot of people are trying to, like, I don't know what I don't want to make any assumptions, you know, but I think a lot of people are trying to, like, they don't really consider what actually is going on. Because there's all these polarized ideas, but, like, how do you really get a synthesized, clear perspective? And, like, it's very difficult because, like, mostly what you know about anything that's going on is filtering to you through your computer network. And that is very, very tiny. You really can't. And then you go out in the world and you this and that. And so it's like, is it really going on? What's really happening? And it's like, and I'm just kind of trying to boil it down. It's like, okay, so we're still moving along here. It's basically like, okay, like you have this thing that just is not going away. It's mutating. It's changing. We have this thing that you maybe can inject in yourself, and that might help, but it really isn't. It really is not solving it. And the thing's just going and going and going. And so, like, at the end of the day, does this mean that, like, basically, like, at some point, everybody has to come into contact with this virus. Whether they stick it in them with the vaccine, whether they get it from somewhere. They walk somewhere and they just get a whiff of it and then it gets them. But I'm just wondering, does everyone have to come in contact with this in some way? And like the truth is, like the truth about the state of human health collectively. And the reason why this is all occurring is that the human being is so far away from its natural resonance that it's susceptible to these things that it's not supposed to be. Viruses, these colds, all these sicknesses and diseases are not meant to be for us if we are to be living in alignment. But because we live out of alignment and it's gotten so bad, and the reality of how bad it is no one even wants to really look at that and consider it. Because things are really genuinely worse than you want to believe, and they're also better and on cue and perfect in a way that's beyond belief. But no matter what we're doing, there seems to be this force that is out there, potentially getting you. And like, okay, so what's the what are we working towards? What are we going towards? Are you living your life in a way that is going to enable you to be resistant to sickness? Or are you living in a way that could be setting you up for sickness? I don't know I guess what I'm saying though is like everybody is basically getting checked. You got to get checked. Whether it's when that happens, I don't know. You know, it's like a hurdle. I think everyone's got to get checked, and depending on how they are, they go one way or the other. Same body, new body. It's going. But it seems like no matter how long anyone hides, no matter how many layers of masks they wear, no matter how many vaccines they get, no matter what, this thing is still bubbling around. And from what I think I know, a human doesn't have to suffer these things. However, most of them are going to. And the truth of it is that engaging in the economy and the money and all these things is ultimately not what's going to liberate us from these things and our spiritual bondage. But beans and plants and herbs. The real deals. I don't know. I don't know, man. I guess what I'm trying to say is the solution is closer than we realize. But it's also impossibly far off because of these things and what we are and what life is. But check out my credit card right here. It's my bank account, my savings right here. Gonna make a deposit into my savings. You know? Cause who knows, man? What if one of these days something happens? If something were to happen, I'm glad and fortunate I have some beans. I'm glad I've got some beans, man. I'm glad I've got some seeds. And I'm glad I know how to drop them. And I'm glad I know how to breathe. And observe the trees and the birds. And the bees with the honeys. I'm rich!